now we try to understand what radical or why, how radicalism is developed. I found out that there are two basic problems, basic issues. When we talk about religious radicalism, there are only two basic issues within each religion. What I call as hierarchical worldview, and the second one is religious tribalism. I would like to explain it one by one. The first one is hierarchical worldview. It means, the way we view, the way we see the world in hierarchical hierarchical ranking system. It is also expressed in what is somehow well known, that is social stratification. That is hierarchical, in the sense that there are some superior but others inferior. So hierarchical thinking or hierarchical worldview. So they put kind of stratification on all the elements, all the realities in the world. For example, racialism. Racialism is the perspective and the belief that our race or some race is superior than the others. It is happened, for example, very well known in apartheid system in South Africa, wherein the white people believe and teach and justify and legitimize that the white-skinned people are superior than the black, and they accept it as truth, as fundamental truth that lead into colonization and also slavery. The other form of well-known hierarchical worldview is sexism. Sexism from the word sex, jenis kelamin, wherein it is believed that male sex, jenis kelamin laki-laki, male sex is superior than the female. Then it is expressed in the form of patriarchy, a social structure, that gives the priority, superiority of men over women. So this is the example of hierarchical worldview. But it is also happening in the religious sphere, which I think we should reflect on it critically. That's why the title of this presentation of today is Criticism Against Radicalism. So actually there are also religious radicalism based on this hierarchical worldview. It started, for example, in the division of segregation among the creatures in the world. For example, halal and haram, clean and unclean, etc., etc. But also it is radicalized that in the view regarding other beliefs and religions, that our religion is the best, the pure and the holy one, while the others, those who have different faith and belief, different rituals and understanding, different religious practices, are evil. In spiritual terminologies, for example, we have the word kafir or bid'ah. So then we, I believe in almost all religions, this segregation is then legitimized. That our religion is the real one, the best, the truest one, and the others are being misled, evil, etc., etc. But also it is being radicalized and also being developed into more destructive action towards the others. That label the others as second citizens, but also as enemies, and valid to be diminished, valid to be destroyed. Therefore, we saw in the history, for example, in evangelization of some countries, for example, when the Christianity were also being spread, to Africa and Asia, etc., etc. There were some destruction, done, by the missionaries, etc., etc., because of this hierarchical worldview that saw the native religions, for example, as kafir, paganist, barbarian, etc., etc. So that is the mentality of the hierarchical worldview, the mentality of certain, especially the major religions, towards the others, especially the minority, that they are kafir, they are unclean, etc., etc., and valid, and it is justified, for any violation. Therefore, for example, it is also expressed in the violation of the human rights of the minority groups and communities, and even justify some terrorist attack against the other believers. So that is one thing that we should then pay attention to. For that first point, actually we should also be humble enough. Be humble enough that we cannot ourselves own God. If this is character building religion, and if we dig into the theology, we should say that God is beyond. God is beyond our comprehension. God is beyond our understanding and definition. So who are we to say that our understanding about God is the truest one? So that is also contradictory and so controversial. The most we should then cultivate humility, but also mercy and compassion. In the sense that if God will the diversity, the variety, and the free will, freedom of human being to search for God and to construct understanding and tradition, religious traditions, then who are we to condemn the variety and diversity of religions in the world? So in mystical tradition, it is usually expressed that we should let God be God, yeah, in the sense that we cannot then monopolize God. Let God be God. The most that we can do is to support one another, to care for one another. Yeah. So we should go away from the hatred, yeah, but also misled conception about our own superiority. Yeah. So that is the first point. Yeah. The most that we should do is to become more, what I mentioned a while ago, merciful and compassionate, but also more open-minded, and in a word, we should also be inclusive. Yeah? Inclusive, it means we should be in solidarity with us, with others, yeah, include others in our way of thinking, in our way of doing things. Yeah? We should think of the others, yeah, for example, even the other religious communities who are different from us. Yeah? So we should have more universal mercy and compassion towards others, also all creatures. Yeah. So that is the first point about hierarchical worldview. The second one is another issue within all religions, yeah, which I call as religious tribalism. Religious tribalism. In fact, all religions are constructed in tribal setting. Tribal setting. Yeah. So it was originally a religion of a tribe. A religion of a tribe. Yeah. For example, Judaism, yeah, in Israel was actually also a tribalistic religion. Yeah. It starts from the tribe. Even in Judaism, it is called the 12 tribes, yeah, the children of Jacob. Yeah. Basically, it is a family, yeah, a family, which is then extended towards a clan, yeah. But it is the Israel tribe, yeah. And during those days, yeah, Israel was in conflict and in fighting, yeah, against other tribes. Yeah. Up to now, yeah, what we see in between Israel and Palestine. Yeah. So that is an obvious example. Yeah. What happened is that religions also start from this context and setting, yeah, of fighting with others, with other tribes, but also fighting theologically against other way of believing in God, other concepts about God. Yeah. And it was started that way, and that Judaism, which is then very much uh, inspiring, yeah, the other traditions, which is called Abrahamic religions, yeah, the major Abrahamic religions, like Christianity and Islam. Yeah. So there are the seeds, yeah, of religious tribalism. Yeah. What is the characteristic of religious tribalism? Yeah. It is just like the conflict, yeah, among the tribes, yeah, wherein each tribe will then construct their own stories. And in the sense of religious tradition, yeah, they also create religious stories, yeah, mythology, etc., etc., folk tales, even prayers that God would take their own side. Yeah. They plead to God to take their own side and defend them. Yeah. And they then monopolize, claim that the God, the Almighty, is only for them and against the other tribe. So, for example, then they come up with the idea of the chosen people, the chosen nation, the chosen country, the chosen tribe. that they then reduce the mercy and love of God to all human beings, the mercy and love of God to all creatures, to become their own. God then is portrayed as having mercy, compassion, solidarity only for their own tribe. Then they construct also stories, etc., images, mythologies, concepts, labels, biases, prejudices against the other tribe, which are then portrayed as evil, as enemies, and pejoratively or negatively portrayed as lesser or the least, the unclean, the kafir, etc., etc. So that is what I call as tribalistic or religious tribalistic mentality. This is the problem. This is actually a great problem, especially when it is then radicalized in the doctrines, which are taught repeatedly and believed up to the point that the people accept it as the real truth. And then the problem also is that some religious leaders make a kind of propaganda, etc., etc., and continue teach about this one. Actually, for maybe I hope it is because of ignorance. The first problem is ignorance, wherein they do not know, they do not understand other traditions, because they are become so exclusive, fixed mindset, fixed mindedness, and are not able to learn, approach, and encounter other traditions, and they, because of that traditions and upbringing, etc., etc., have already believed that the others are wrong, the others are evil, etc., etc. So they cannot open their mind to objectively and positively listen to the others. Then teach this one to their followers, etc., etc. So somehow these two problems, hierarchical thinking or hierarchical worldview and religious tribalism, then when it is believed in formalistic way, and being radicalized, then it will lead into certain trouble in the real life, what is then we call as terrorism, as if religion teaches about terrorism, terrorist actions, etc., etc. Aside from other issues, because actually terrorism also is a multifaceted and complicated issue, But I want to focus more on these two issues within religions. Of course, there are also certain issues that also play important roles, like, for example, political interest, and also social interactions, economical thing, etc., etc. That also then influence how people from various religions interact with one another. But in the line of character building religion, we should then should understand and also realize and admit about these issues within our religions, because in all religions, though there are tribalistic and hierarchical worldview, there are also even more teachings towards, for example, golden rule, mercy, compassion, and also inclusive teaching that teaches to the believers, the followers of the religions, to be kind, to be caring, to be supportive towards others. So these are the teachings, and I believe we have it more than the negative and exclusive ones. So the assignment is to let's say is to promote this kind of teachings and reinterpret all the doctrines, all the teachings that lead into destruction, destructive teachings, etc., etc. So to face and to overcome the issue of radicalism, terrorism, etc., for me, the religious followers should be critical, enough to all the teachings. That's why I so much appreciate one of the teaching of Siddhartha Gautama, who says that we should always be critical towards all the teachings, even if the teaching is from me. So it means we need to first of all analyze the teaching. And how to analyze that one? To make it easy, we can use the golden rule as our basic, what I call a while ago as ethical criteria or ethical point of reference. We should not do unto others what we do not want them do to you. So that is the basic for me, the basic criteria that can help us. Because all religions believe in God as the merciful and compassionate God. God is good. In bahasa Indonesia we call it Allah Maha Baik. So God only wills the good, peace, kindness. Therefore, all the teachings should follow into that light. So that is the other point, that the followers of each religion should always be critical. Otherwise, we will be misled by certain people who use religious formal symbols, attires, etc., etc., as if they are from God. And even some religious leaders claim as if they are God's messengers, or God's representatives, as if they know what God knows. So we should be critical enough. What is the main problem also in our way of education is that we tend to memorize and just follow what the leaders, what our especially religious leaders say. We do not have that kind of method of critical dialogue, critical analysis, or critical thinking. Therefore, most of the religious followers then just follow what the leaders want. So that is also one of the crucial thing about our education. So the more we need critical thinking, not only memorizing. The tendencies of almost all religions is they ask the followers to memorize things, even memorize the holy scriptures, memorize the traditional teachings, etc., etc., and feel that it is already fixed as the real truth. But rather, yeah, we should then appreciate one of the greatest gifts from God. Yeah, it is our capacity to think, our common sense, etc., etc., but also our good conscience, ya. Suara hati in bahasa Indonesia, ya. Which is so much close to empathy towards others. Ya. So becoming religious or embracing certain religions, yeah, we should not then put our common sense aside or also our conscience aside. No, we should make use of these facilities as God's given facilities in ourselves, yeah, to discuss, to reinterpret, to find the better and the more productive, yeah, more supportive understanding about life. Yeah. In short, what is destructive, what is harmful is not from God, the merciful and the compassionate one. Yeah. So these are the things. Yeah, when we talk about radicalism, terrorism, also religious formalism, we should be aware of these two main issues. Yeah, within religions. Yeah. Once again, I should repeat: hierarchical thinking or hierarchical worldview, and religious tribalism. Yeah. Rather, we should believe in God as the most inclusive one. Yeah. God that loves all God's creatures. Yeah. So we even should go beyond anthropocentrism. Yeah. Anthropocentrism is from the word anthropos, means human being, and centrism, yeah, from center, which means pusat, ya, in bahasa Indonesia, ya. Therefore, anthropocentrism is centered on the man or human being. Yeah. So the paradigm of the worldview that sees that human being is the priority or the superior against the other creatures. But rather we see that we cannot live without the trees, the plants, because the plants are the one who produce oxygen, you know, for our life, and also food for our life. We cannot live without water, etc., etc. So we should then think about interconnectedness, that we also need other creatures. Yeah. So rather than thinking of human being as the superior among the rest. Yeah. So in that sense, yeah, when we talk about God's universal care for all, it means God also care, yeah, for other creatures. God also care and love other religious communities. So that is the point, yeah. The more the teachings in this line that God loves all God's creatures, yeah. Then hopefully all the attitudes, even teachings, etc., will fall in that line. Yeah. That is the only way, yeah, for me to face, yeah, the problem of segregative teaching, yeah, and all that raise what we call as radicalism, violence, yeah, in the name of God. Yeah.